At midnight, there was a knock on my hotel room door, and I saw two men standing outside. I had no idea. I opened the door, and one of them said, "Are you Mr. Wu?" And we know that China performs 60 to 100,000 organ transplants every year. And to this day, the Chinese government cannot show or prove where all these organs come from. One Chinese person told me, it was terrible. He was arrested for practicing Falun Gong. Then the police said my cousin for brainwashing. And I appeal to all people. Please, such things must be stopped as quickly as possible.
Hello, dear viewers. The topic of our conversation today is the protection of democracy and freedom. Nowadays, more and more people are facing violations of their fundamental rights and freedoms, even to the point of physical violence. In some countries, people are no longer able to express their opinions freely or live according to their beliefs. They are publicly unjustly defamed and discredited. Today, we have with us Manyan, a participant of the Falun Dafa movement. Welcome, Manyan.
Thank you.
Manyan, would you like to say a few words to our viewers about yourself?
I am a Falun Gong practitioner. I've been practicing it for 29 years, since 1996. Or actually, since 1995. Sorry, since the end of 1995 until today. Yes, professionally. I used to work for a large international company. For the past 20 years, I have been a sales executive for high-tech equipment, including China. I have been a board member of the human rights organization, ISHR, International Society for Human Rights, for many years. And as I practice Falun Gong and work with human rights, I am no longer so welcome in China.
Yes, in our research, we came across the three core principles of Falun Gong. They are truthfulness, benevolence, and most importantly, forbearance. Can you describe or explain the core principles of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, and what is the difference between Falun Gong and Falun Dafa?
It's a very good question. To explain it simply, Falun Dafa is more of the original name, while Falun Gong is a kind of modern name, adapted to Qigong. So Falun Gong became very popular in China in the 60s and 70s, much like Qigong. However, due to the communist regime, using the original names could cause problems. That's why they called everything Gong, meaning exercise. This way, it was a bit more neutral, like Falun exercise. Falun Dafa, on the other hand, means the great law of the cosmos and the revolving wheel of the cosmos. This can be dangerous in a totalitarian country like it was in China then, and is still today. Yes, I'm impressed that you knew this so well. Truthfulness, benevolence, forbearance. So Falun Dafa, firstly, believes that body and spirit are inseparable. Many people practice Falun Dafa to achieve good health, and that's good. However, health depends not only on physical exercises, but also on spiritual elevation. Through Falun Dafa, as I understand it, a person spiritually develops more and more towards greater truthfulness, greater benevolence, and greater forbearance. This is actually an ancient Chinese tradition. The highest achievement for a person is to come into complete harmony with the entire cosmos. Yes, and I also understand it this way. To get there, a person should continually elevate themselves, developing more truthfulness, more benevolence, and more forbearance. This brings them closer to highest harmony with the cosmos. This is how I understand Falun Dafa, and it is very profound wisdom. Yes, I can only describe it as I understand it because it is very deep and multifaceted. I'm not sure if I fully grasp everything myself. Yes.
This also aligns with what we have researched. It also connected with working on oneself. Yes, by self-improvement, I can bring about change.
It's very important. This is a very important component. Let's say in this practice, as I learned it from our teacher, Mr. Leung Zi. For example, when we're confronted with conflicts, most people always blame others. They immediately start looking for faults in others, right?
Shifting responsibility.
Exactly. In Falun Dafa, we do the opposite. If I get into a conflict with someone, my first thought should be, oh, did I do something wrong? Or could I have done it better at the very least? And since I have been practicing for 29 years, I know many Falun Gong practitioners around the world. I have found that in many other organizations, conflict management is one of the biggest issues. When more than two people come together, there are rarely conflicts in Falun Dafa. Indeed, because many understand that they must first look within themselves, and then the conflict automatically disappears. This is something I find fantastic because I have worked with many Falun Dafa practitioners on various projects. This is also the reason why the Chinese Communist Party has been persecuting Falun Dafa for 25 years, using all possible methods, from brutal torture, prison sentences, and organ harvesting, to attempt to play practitioners against each other with money and various infiltration methods.
To incite them against each other.
Exactly. They have not succeeded. It doesn't work. Since we simply look within, that is a way, a magic formula.
Yes, you just mentioned it, Manyan. Falun Dafa, Falun Gong is still being persecuted in China, as well as in other countries. If you'd like, you could share your own story with your words to the viewers.
Yes. Actually, around the whole world, everywhere, Falun Dafa is totally free. In Germany and all over Europe for sure. Around the world, except China. There, it is totally banned. In Russia, it is not banned, but from time to time, it is hindered by the police. And I suspect that the motive for this hindrance doesn't even come from the Russian government, but because they're quite dependent on China. China buys a lot of oil from Russia, and this doesn't happen without certain conditions. As for my personal experience, as I said, I used to work for a large international company. I was actually the head of exports markets from 1995 to 2003. During this time, I was very often in China. In some years, maybe 10 times a year. Once in 2003, I was again in China, staying at the Sheraton Hotel in Beijing. I'm going to give a condensed version of the story because it would otherwise take too long. At midnight, there was a knock on my hotel room door, and I saw two men standing outside. I had no idea. I opened the door, and one of them said, "Are you Mr. Wu?" So in Mandarin, I am indeed Mr. Wu. We would like to talk to you. What about? Oh, we just want to make friends with you. I said, okay, come in. Yes, it was late at night, but I was not afraid. So come in. Then they said, no, our boss is waiting in another room. This didn't scare me either. That's no problem. We went to that room. The boss was sitting in the middle of the living room. He actually had a presidential suite, a large suite with a living room, bedroom, and so on. And to make a long story short, he then launched a 3-hour campaign to get me under his control. Yes, the first step. It was a 3-stage rocket. The first stage is persuasion, blah, blah, blah. He said so many flattering words. First, he softened me up. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Such a successful Chinese person. And yes, I've heard so many names for so long, and now I'm really happy, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, he tried to persuade me for at least 2 hours. Of course, without success. Then came the second stage, bribery. But not in a way you might expect, with a suitcase full of dollars. No, because they had probably already conducted an investigation on me. They always do that. These Chinese spies probably figured out that cash wouldn't work. But they obviously discovered my weakness, my desire to be successful. They said, "Can we work together?" I asked how? How can we work together? I kept pushing him to be more specific, and it was quite interesting. He mentioned that I give many talks at European Parliament, the UN, and various national parliaments, particularly to the higher-ups and business people. He claimed that I was misrepresenting China and the Chinese government. That's what they meant by cooperation. He said, I can help you succeed in China. Just tell me what you want to achieve. Whether it's $1 million a year or $200 million. If you simply state your goals, I guarantee you will get them. But in return, you need to continue speaking. But the message must change. You need to present the truth in a way that highlights how good the Chinese government is, how great our party is. That was roughly the deal. Naturally, it didn't work for me. His patience ran out, and he started insulting me. He threatened me, saying that if I wasn't cooperative, I would face endless problems. He even said, "You and your family will face endless problems." I wasn't affected by this because I understand that this party uses old tactics, instilling fear in people. Honestly, I believe in God above. Frankly speaking, I have done nothing wrong. Those who are evil are not me. Why should I be afraid? So I was not afraid. I stood up and decided to leave, and they didn't have courage to stop me. It was only then that the boss came after me and said, as I was already stepping out of the door, "When you get home, think carefully about what I told you tonight." I politely and kindly replied, "Yes, but when I leave, you should also think carefully about what I told you today." So what happened next? I returned to Germany. My company is very international, and I often travel to Sweden for business. Then, about a month later, I had to go back to China for business again. Due to confidentiality, I can't share too many details, but I can say that people from a European security agency contacted me and said, "We know you have to go back to China in 2 weeks. Because you apply for visa at the Chinese embassy. We just want to give you some good advice. Don't go if you don't want this to be the last trip of your life."
Okay.
He made it clear once again that this isn't just my last trip to China. It's the last trip of my life altogether. So I stayed home. Fortunately, I must say my boss, a senior executive in a company, understands my situation. This is beneficial for my human rights work and gives me the freedom to believe what I want. We have arranged it so that I no longer have to go to China. I don't have to go back anymore. Interestingly, my clients in China are all large energy companies that are very close to the government. They all knew that I practice Falun Gong and that I fight for human rights. Yet, they all want to do business with me. I don't keep any secrets about what's going on. It's not something bad. Why should I have secrets? Everyone knows. And I believe that precisely because they knew I practiced Falun Gong. Those who are aware of it likely understand the importance of being genuine and compassionate. I feel safer doing business with such people. In the business world, the worst thing is to have a partner or a seller who is a fraud. That's the worst that can happen. So I suspect that the top Chinese client I deal with are not just ordinary engineers. They are at the very top, like the head of an entire energy company with 100,000 employees. I'm sure they're all party members. Yet, they still want to do business with me. My employees who continue to travel to China always tell my clients, if you want to meet our boss, Manyan, you need to come to Germany. And they all come to Germany. It's interesting. I believe this is significant. Why do I say this? Because I think many Chinese people, especially those who are well-informed, do not believe the propaganda, but act out of their own interests. They don't want to upset the party, so they just play along.
What do you think? In your opinion, why Falun Gong?
Yes, I think there are two main reasons for me. The first reason is one Communist Party leader. He thinks a lot in terms of power logic, power relations. This one party leader sees everything through the lens of his own power position. When he meets someone, he thinks, is this person good for my power position or not? If yes, then great, we're good friends. If not, then they get eliminated. And with Falun Gong, they operate in a similar way. Falun Gong is completely apolitical. But the party leader receives a report a few years before the persecution begins, indicating that there are now 70 million Chinese practicing Falun Gong. Oh, and then there's this party leader named Jiang Zemin. I suspect he thought, my party only has 65 million members, and they have 70 million, and is growing. Oh, maybe one day, all these Falun Gong practitioners will say, down with the Communist Party, and then we have a problem, really. So that's the first reason. Communists are generally hypersensitive to any organizations. Even though Falun Gong doesn't have any formal organization, I can't even show an ID that proves I'm a Falun Gong practitioner. Who is a Falun Gong practitioner? It's someone who believes in the principles of truthfulness, benevolence, and forbearance, and tries to live their life according to these principles as much as possible. So it's really a very loose organization. But still, they do connect with each other, engage in various activities together, and organize experience-sharing conferences and such. So, in their eyes, there's some form of organization, and communists around the world are hypersensitive to that. The second main reason, I think, is that I always say that evil people do not like good people. The evil people I refer to are corrupt individuals. They may not have started out as bad, but they have become corrupt in the sense that they only think about power. Power, power, power. I've had contact with very high-ranking members of the Communist Party, and it's so foreign to me that they connect everything to their power position. Who is the strongest? Who is the most powerful? If we do this, does it strengthen our position or not? It's all about power, power, power. These evil people are afraid of good people. By good people, I mean the Falun Gong practitioners who want to be more truthful, more compassionate, and more forgiving. One Chinese person told me, it was terrible. He was arrested for practicing Falun Gong. Then the police said my cousin for brainwashing. Great. They called it re-education. Great re-education. The woman's thoughts need to be re-educated. So, brainwashing. It's awful. I always tell my friends, you know what? It's not just your cousin who's being brainwashed. You are too. and everyone else living in China. It's not just in these so-called labor camps or re-education camps that people are brainwashed. The whole society is. Why? Because if that weren't the case, I don't understand why there's only one party in China. And there isn't a single media outlet that is free. All media are party-controlled. Zero free media. Zero press freedom. Why? Because they're constantly brainwashing people, which means they're constantly lying. And to ensure that the lies work, they only want one voice. They don't want to hear a second opinion.
That leads to the next question. Manyan, when we look at this, yes, there's the issue of freedom of belief and conscience. Based on what you've said, do you think such values are still protected today? Can I freely express what I think? Can I live freely according to my beliefs that come from my heart?
Most people desire this freedom, but around the world, even in democratic countries, including Germany, there may be people, worse still than politicians, who find it more convenient and comfortable to govern a bit dictatorially, or simply think that democracy is a bit too slow. I believe that people have a desire for freedom from birth. Behind this desire is a powerful energy. It becomes difficult to completely suppress it. But as Americans always say, freedom is not free. Yes, freedom doesn't come without effort. It requires work. That's why I believe that democracy alone, with democratic mechanisms, there are many checks and balances in any democracy, can prevent evil ideas from going too far. But no matter how much you try to control and monitor with laws and everything, there are always gaps. And these gaps, if people lack morality, make it impossible to seal them completely.
weil Gott sieht uns immer, ja, egal wo du bist, ja, aber viele Menschen glauben das nicht. Und dann werden
If a person prioritizes their personal ambitions above everything else,
so Demokratie hilft nur
and if no one sees or hears them, because normally these people don't believe in God, who sees us always, then they will still try to do bad things. Democracy helps only to a certain extent. Therefore, I believe that for a truly better world, democracy alone is not enough. Morality is much, much more important. Its enhancement is a central strength. In the history of China, for example, during the Tang Dynasty, there was no democracy. It was an imperial system. However, especially in the first 100 years of this dynasty's rule, people lived quite peacefully and prosperously. The country was very strong. Yes, very strong, but not aggressive. Peaceful and strong. That's the best combination. At that time, people from all over the world came to China. The Tang Dynasty was about 1,300 years ago, and people from all over the world constantly came to admire this fantastic country. The typical description of life in this dynasty was as follows. No one would take a wallet that someone had lost on the street. No one locked their doors when they went to sleep. Yes, that was back then. Actually, during the Tang Dynasty, the front door of a house had no lock because no one thought of committing a burglary. Although there was no democracy, there was high morality. And even the emperor minded his manners and tried to have high morals. Because at that time, the emperor had a great respect for the so-called national teachers, like Confucius, for example. He was not a politician. Some called him a philosopher, others an enlightened one. Yes, and these enlightened ones in ancient China were seen as even higher than the emperor. That is so interesting. I want to say that ancient China had many such periods. And although there was no democracy back then, high morality made it work well. The best, of course, would be to have both.
You're talking about morality and democracy now. If we break it down a bit, how important is it today to talk about the threat to democracy? When we see defamatory articles in the press, the manipulation of the masses through certain viewpoints of an individual against the masses, how important is it to openly show these reports and say, people, look closely, do your own research?
Of course, it's important to report on such things. Yes, but to stop or prevent such bad things, we have the problem of morality again. What is morality? Morality, in a sense, is the opposite of selfishness. If a person is selfish, thinking only about their personal interest, they automatically don't have good morality. Yes, and if we don't work on this aspect, it's impossible. We can stop one bad article, and then two more will come from somewhere else, right? And unfortunately, not everyone practices Falun Dafa. In Falun Dafa, we always look within ourselves. Did we do something wrong? Yes, but many so-called bad people, if we can say that, are actually driven by their attachments to fame and wealth, to emotions, to desires, to erotism, and so on. All the striving leads to people to bad deeds, to misdeeds. Many people might not even want to be bad people and commit misdeeds. But because of their attachments, their own senses, for their personal interests, they become blind. Yes, they don't see it like a small child, I would say. A child is not bad, but I just want to draw the parallel. If a child is very, very stubborn and attached to a particular toy, they would absolutely want to have it. Maybe on the way to this toy, there are other dangerous things, but they don't see them. They just want this toy. And an adult makes the same mistakes. Only it's no longer a child's toy, but a big toy for grown-ups. This is actually a question of morality. But why? I found that many Falun Dafa practitioners have relatively high morals because they no longer have this striving. Yes, we believe it's not wrong to be famous, rich, or have a high position if it comes naturally. But as a person, I should never strive for it. The danger is not what you have or what you don't have, but the inner desire to possess those things. Yes,
Striving
exactly.
for inner wealth. How important is it for you to show people that this is crucial to stand by their beliefs and express their opinions freely?
Yes, of course it is important because if you don't do what you say, your words simply lose their power. Yes, in the past, this was normal in a country like Germany. People said, a promise is a promise. Yes, that's what was common before. You stand by your words. And interestingly, in China, there is an exact same saying, a promise is a promise. Not exactly phrased like that, but the meaning is the same. Confucius, I believe, said, once a word leaves your mouth, you cannot chase it back even with the swiftest horse. It's a bit more complicated because it's more figurative and poetic, but the meaning is the same, as a promise is a promise. Yes, and that is our problem. Our problem is not only that some people sabotage democratic systems. Our problem today is much bigger. We don't look inward. We don't try to fundamentally raise morality and ethics. If I constantly tell myself that a promise is right, and everyone thinks the same, then we're no longer so dependent on democratic control mechanisms. That's my opinion.
Dear Manyan, I want to thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's very important that people question the story behind Falun Gong, really see who is denouncing whom, why, and for what reason. And above all, I want to thank you for advocating for human rights, for standing up for your friends at Falun Dafa, for truly saying, I stand behind what we practice. There's nothing wrong with it. Can you say a few more words to people? What you would like to pass on to them last?
Yes. At the end, I can say something positive. In recent years, I tried to share the truth about Falun Gong with various people, including politicians. And of course, as we talked about it before, some politicians might try to bypass democracy a bit. But I actually see the person, not which party they belong to or which country, but much more the heart of these people. Yes, for example, many politicians might not even be interested in the persecuted people in China. Just an example. But I must say, I have had 2 conversations with a woman from the German government. She's a human rights commissioner of the German government, Dr. Kofler. And she really has compassion for the persecuted people. I really must say, and in 2019, the 20th anniversary of the persecution of Falun Gong, she even wrote a press release on the official website of the Foreign Office, sharply condemning the Chinese government for the persecution and calling for an immediate end to the persecution. It is also mentioned that an independent investigative committee should go to China to investigate the allegations of organ harvesting because it is really terrible. And we know that China performs 60 to 100,000 organ transplants every year. And to this day, the Chinese government cannot show or prove where all these organs come from. And we in Falun Gong are convinced that 90% of them come from Falun Gong practitioners. And an independent investigation group led by 2 Canadians found the same results.
Und in London war eine Tribunal da, China-Tribunal.
In London, there was a tribunal, the China Tribunal.
Sir Geoffrey Nice hat
The very famous judge, Sir Geoffrey Nice, came to the same conclusions, that there are a significant number of victims of systematic large-scale organ harvesting, and they are Falun Gong practitioners. And I appeal to all people, please, such things must be stopped as quickly as possible. I can only say, Falun Gong practitioners are fantastic. Despite this brutal persecution, they have remained 100% peaceful. Even the communist propaganda doesn't have the courage to say otherwise. Yes, and I find it fantastic, this peaceful behavior until the end, despite cruel persecution. Behind everyone with this peaceful behavior is a gigantic spiritual power, and spiritual power will always win in the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.